In this lesson, we'll cover setting up the user's copy of the central file. So in a previous lesson, we created a central file for work sharing. That central file is set up. Now the next step, which we'll cover in this lesson, is to create a copy of it, or the user's copy that the user would work upon, and then synchronize changes back to the central file. So the process to do this is to open up the central file. Now, this can be done by an IT administrator, and then the user files can be passed out to the users, or the user can do this. So let's go to the Open menu, browse to where you stored the files for this lesson, the C drive, Learning Revit Structure 2015, Chapter 16. The central file we'll use for this project is the central file 1601. Now, you also can use the one you created in the last lesson if you want, but I'm going to use the central file 1601. Now, when you select it, if you look at the very bottom of this window, you're going to see work sharing. Revit knows it's a central file, and by default, it's check marking the Create New Local, or the user's copy of this. So what it's going to do is make a copy of the central file. It's going to put an ending on the file name with the user's name, or Windows login name, and save it in the directory set up by default where Revit will store the actual user's files. Typically, that's in My Documents. Now, the other two options are Audit and Detach from Central. But for this, let's just verify Create New Local is checkmarked and click Open. Again, Revit is going to make a copy of the central file. It's going to save it automatically, and it's going to name it the same as the central file, but include the user's Windows login name. So you may say, well, where did it save this project to? How do you know? Well, it's actually in your settings. So if you go to the large R in the upper left, and then click Options. Once in Options, click File Locations. Here, default path for users is where it's going to save that file. You could change this path if you want. You also could copy that file from its current location and place it somewhere else if you don't like where it's at. Click Cancel. To see the file then, I'll browse to that location of My Documents. Here in My Documents, I can see the central file 1601_Tim, which it just created for this exact step that we did. Yours would be named the same as your Windows login or your Revit login, depending on how you have it configured. This file and the backup folder above can be copied or moved from its current location to wherever you want to place it. We're going to leave it here for this lesson. So now I could start working within the project. But remember, again, the first thing is to actually make a work set current for whatever you're going to work upon. Now, the work sets are listed at the very bottom, or you could go to the Collaborate tab. Whatever you're going to work on, choose that work set. Now, whatever you add, for example, beams, will be tagged or grouped to this work set. To see this on the Collaborate tab, click the Collaborate tab on the ribbon. You can click Worksets as well, and here I can see are the worksets. Now, if you did want to lock or make this workset editable, so it's locked, let's say for design review, all you have to do is change No to Yes. Your name is now the owner, meaning you only have exclusive rights to modify anything created with this workset. Other users can view it, but they can't modify it. Again, the best scenario would be as if it's under design review. However, I'm going to change that back to no, and then click OK. So after you add things and you want to actually synchronize your changes up to the server, on the Collaborate tab in the Synchronize panel, you have Synchronize with Central File. There's two options. Synchronize Now just does the synchronize. Synchronize and Modify Settings, if you click that, displays another window telling you where the central file is located and asking you if you want to synchronize anything else or relinquish any ownership of worksets that you've taken. It also asks you to place in comments of whatever you are synchronizing or what you've modified since the last time you synced. And I can say beams added, for example. Then when you click OK, Revit synchronizes your changes, also pulls down changes to the central file. So as a review in this lesson, we looked at setting up the user's copy of the central file. We first opened the central file and then verified or marked to create a local user's copy. Once we opened that, It created a copy of the central file and saved it to the default location where Revit stores your files, typically in My Documents. The name was named the same as the central file, but appended at the end with the user's name either from Windows or log into Revit. Once inside of the file, you set whatever workset you want to be active and then add or modify elements of that workset. When you want to synchronize, you go to the Collaborate tab and then choose Synchronize with Central Server.